Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at a chess game that I just played recently, where probably I should have lost this one. My opponent did something very silly and actually gave me enough compensation to be able to win the game. And yeah, we're just going to get into the chess. My opponent starts off the game with e4, and I decide to play c5, which is, of course, the Sicilian defense. And we get into some theory here. Knight f3. I finally played the line that I'm supposed to play with d6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, bishop d3 is the move that kind of gets me out of my opening theory, where I kind of have to think on my own now. Bishop to d3. The point of this move is that they're simply defending this, but the more natural move is, of course, to play knight c3, which is what most people play. And bishop d3 is just a little bit passive, because normally the bishop belongs in c4 in these lines, but either way. So I already had to think on my own, and I did a little bit of a stupid thing. I autopiloted this move pretty quickly, which was the move g6, and I almost pre-moved this because for some reason I was really expecting knight c3, and of course g6 is the line that I'm playing against knight c3. So at g6, my opponent castles the king. Of course, you can't really say anything about that, and I follow up g6 with bishop to g7, which is of course the point, right? And now, instead of what I thought my opponent was going to do, which is a little bit dangerous here, because in this position I realized that what I allowed white to do is I allowed white to play into a Maroczy bind structure with the move c4, which is actually the best move, and I was able to correctly identify this. c4 would have been a very nice move, which is the point of the Maroczy bind, is that you're guarding this pawn, guarding this square very well, and there are some serious issues. Maybe the knight coming here in the future, maybe yeah, and basically black is just a little bit of issues developing. Of course, in this position is not as bad because I don't play e5. For example, e5 here would be a very large positional mistake, because then you're never going to be able to get this pawn break off with d5 and be able to break out of the bind. But yeah, I thought c4 was a very interesting move, but instead my opponent decides to do something a little bit more passive, more like I guess structural is a way to say it. I forget the word. I totally don't remember the word, but I guess they're solidifying their position, right? So my opponent decides to solidify their position here, and instead decides to go with the very passive move c3. After c3, I simply play knight c6, because I thought, okay, well, if my opponent trades with me, this would be pretty good for me, because now I'm able to get this, your knight gets out of the center, and life is pretty good. And if you don't trade for me, then I put pressure towards the center. I might even take and play d4. I'm sorry, not d4, e5 in some positions, maybe e5 immediately. Maybe I just go for d5. I don't know, I'm going to play something interesting, and I'm going to get a fun position. But my opponent does actually take my knight, and after b takes c6, it seems like black has gotten everything they wanted. Black is up in development a little bit because they have the knight out, and this bishop is very easy to get out with these nice light squares basically everywhere. My rook over here is able to get some play in the future, but really in the Sicilians, the rook doesn't normally belong in the b8 square, which is a little bit counterintuitive. At least in my experience, the rook doesn't normally belong in the b8 square. Maybe there's some line, but I've realized that the rook normally doesn't do this even when the file is open, which is a little bit strange. And what makes this stranger, this position, of course, my next moves are easy. I'm going to castle, right, and then I'm going to probably develop my bishop somehow. My opponent goes for this very interesting move, king to h1. And this is a very large shock to the black position, just in general. The idea of king to h1, I thought that, of course, the idea to king h1 would be to start an attack and maybe go for some f4, g4, put the rook on g1 and get something over here. And I had to think pretty carefully of a game plan here. Of course I castled. We're not even gonna, of course that's the best move in this position. But after that, I have to really think of a plan here, and it's not easy. Black is better, but the attack is coming. My opponent is going to play f4 and f5, and his point of the king not being on the g1 square is that he thinks that maybe the queen would have some issues over here. Maybe the bishop could get somewhere to this square and get some problems on the king over there. But I don't really I don't think that this is what he wanted, and yeah, but the attack is coming. My opponent goes knight to d2, which is a nice move. He's trying to bring the knight into the game. Probably he's trying to play like this move and then put the knight on f3, which is completely reasonable. That's probably what I would do in this position. And I have to think of a plan, and I think of this very, very interesting move. I'm like, okay, well, you put the king on h1, right? So what do I want to do? I want to blow open the center. I want to get something on this king, right? Because the king is a little bit out of the way. This pawn isn't really too well defended. I feel like I could get some attackers on that. And I was like, I also need to develop my light squared bishop. Let's go bishop to b7. And the idea is, of course, in the future, that line could be very, very powerful. Maybe. It's a big maybe, and it's probably not. But bishop to b7 is an interesting move, and my idea is eventually I want to go knight here, and I want to play this move d5, right? And I want to blow open the center, get some good play going with my nice two fianchettoed bishops, and argue that black is the one actually attacking, and white can probably just throw their gloves away and give up, which would be very, very nice. I would like him to do that. My opponent here goes f4, going for the attack, of course, and I decide to just play normal moves, and I go knight to d7 because, of course, this is my idea. I want to play this move now. I want to play this move as well. Basically, my idea is primarily I want to go here. If my opponent takes me, I'm probably just going to recapture with the knight and argue that my position is doing very, very well with his bishop under attack, his bishop blocked by a pawn, and the fact that I'm going to be able to play d5 next. And if he plays this move f4, my idea is to eventually play this move d5, expand in the center, and have a very, very nice position. And I'm believing that my opponent doesn't have that much of an attack. But that's not correct. I shouldn't do this. I should really trust that my opponent has something, and I should try to quell it with like a move like e6, for example. Just disallow this move f5, because of course this would actually be a very, very nice position for me. I can just simply play something like d5, take the entirety of the center. Now the knight can't even jump into the position. This is never scary. I can even take back with the f pawn, but the h pawn is more accurate, and black is better. Either way, knight d7. My opponent goes with the move knight f3, and I go with my plan of the move e5. And of course, what I'm arguing is that I want to go d5 and I want to expand in the center. My opponent now, of course, plays the move f5, which, I mean, that's what I expected him to do. I thought that was probably the best move of the position. And now I get a little bit of tunnel vision. And what I should have done, I should have waited a second, realized, you know what, I don't think that the center trick works, this idea of expanding the center, because what it really does is it can backfire pretty quickly, because it also opens up my opponent's light squared bishop. This bishop is kind of pointing down now, and this queen is going to be able to get in the future. And this attack is just getting a little bit out of hand, a little bit too quickly. And what I should have done, I should have tried to trade pieces. I should have played knight c5, which I was looking at. Of course, attacks the bishop and the pawn and forces bishop c2. It's a 4c move. You got to check all the 4c moves. And this would have been correct, because this allows my knight to get a little more active, and now I play the move d5. Because after, let's say, e takes d5, c takes d5, you really don't have too many tricks in this position. My knight is kind of doming his light squared bishop, and I really like the position for black. Probably, even though it's equal here, by the way, engine always says equal, but I mean, this seems a lot more comfortable with black, right? I mean, 2 pawns in the center, who wouldn't want that? Instead, I go d5 immediately. And this is a mistake. This is not good. Simply because I kind of overestimated my position. My opponent here can just blow open everything with the move f takes g6. I would have to play f takes g6 to open up my rook. I can't really go h takes g6 now, because the h file is a little bit too strong for my opponent. The move here for an advantage is knight g5 followed by queen g4, queen h5, and like some infiltration over here, right? So I have to be a little bit quicker, so I would have to keep that h file closed and open up my rook. Instead, my opponent goes with a bit of a strange move. It goes with the move bishop to g5, simply like attacking the queen and arguing that he probably wants to play f6 now, right? That's kind of what I thought. If I thought, okay, if I move my queen, my opponent's going to play f6. Like eventually, he's going to move the knight and then play f6. and I really, really did not want him to play f6, so I blitzed out my move very, very quickly. I'm not. This is before I like go into this. This is not easy to see at all. Like the correct move here for black is not easy to see. Just to like give myself some credit. The correct move here for black is just insane. It's bishop to f6, trading off your lovely fianchettoed bishop for like just because like it's attacking. Like if he takes, this is actually good for black, which is crazy. Like he can take, I can just take back with the f pawn, and this is actually just a good position. Actually, taking back with the h pawn is better because I guess my opponent doesn't have any good discoveries like knight d4. I just go queen d6 and I just argue, okay, you have nothing, black is better. Genuinely crazy stuff, but I blitzed out my move and my move was bad. My move was f6. A mistake followed by a mistake. And you're going to see that the next two moves are also mistakes. But my opponent doesn't act better. It doesn't act correctly. My opponent does not act correctly. He has to go bishop to e3 because it's decent at coming around to this idea. Maybe it keeps this diagonal correct, and it controls this square in all lines. Also, this idea can maybe happen in the future, so it pins down my knight to this square. Is that my opponent goes passive, and it goes bishop to c1. By the way, if you're wondering, bishop to d2 is not correct because of knight c5, and I'd be winning this pawn, right? We got to stay tactical. By the way, bishop to c1 is what he chooses. And now I have a choice. I thought here that I was even positionally winning already. I'm tactically winning, sorry. But I'm actually just doing well. If I just take a breather and realize, okay, well, knight c5 is really, really good for me. Like, okay, if he goes queen here, for example, I can simply take on f5, and there's nothing to take. There's a fork, right? And I don't know. I can even take here. G takes f5. Don't take. I mean, I'm just winning. I have this huge battalion of pawns in the center, and they're pushing. I mean, I've got basically two passers already, and more pawns are coming. But that didn't happen. Instead, I thought, oh, wow, I see a fork. Oh, wow, that's so cool. If I take here and he takes here, there's a fork. Wait, what is he going to do about that? I don't really see a move for my opponent here. I think that this is just really, really smart for me. I'm just going to take on f5. But my opponent was a little bit better than me. my opponent was a little bit better than me. Yeah, if he takes the pawn, we get e4 and we're gonna win the game, of course. Like even I mean like a 1600 could probably beat me in this position with black, but my opponent doesn't have to take. It's not checkers. But if they don't take, well, then I'm just gonna take them and I'm gonna be winning, right? So what do? Well, they're able to play this really interesting move, e takes on d5, which I did. I completely missed this move. And the idea is really, really genius. The idea of e takes d5 is, of course, if I come here, d takes c6, and bishop takes c6, and bishop to c4 is a check. And actually what ends up happening is that my pawns are the ones that are loose. After king h8, my opponent can simply play the move knight to d4, hit my bishop, hit my pawn. I'm just going to be losing. I'm going to be down a pawn, and there's more problems. For example, this, right? I can go here, knight c6 here, and bishop d5. It just works. Everything works for my opponent, which is really bad, and it forces me to make a decision. Actually, I can play f4, which I didn't see in the game, just control the knight and do well, but instead I take on cd5 pretty quickly, and after bishop takes f5, black is just worse. Black is just worse. Why is black worse? Well, black is about to get checkmated. Black has one defender of the king, and white has 1, 2, 3, 4 attackers, and that is not what we want. That is really not good when white has three more attackers than you have defenders, it's not good. And now this is pretty much the end of the game. If my opponent plays correctly, I go knight to c5, which makes sense. I mean, he's threatening some check over here and pushing my king back and then bringing all the other pieces in. I don't want to allow any of that, so I go knight to c5. I'm defending some squares. Maybe I'm going to put my knight into the center if he allows me. And basically, if I get one tempo here, black is going to be fine. Black is always going to be fine, but my opponent is not going to give me one tempo. He's going to know what he's about to do. He goes knight to h4. A very, very nice move. Moving the knight into attacking position while also bringing the queen in. Also opening up for the queen to get in, and then the bishop is going to come in. And if you're me in this position, you're going to be feeling the heat, because this is really, really scary, and I have to figure out something immediately. I find the best move, though. I find the best defensive move. I go queen to e8. Queen to e8 is a very, very nice move because, of course, it defends the h4 square. And basically that's it. Now my queen is also in a little bit of a good square for like pushing the pawns, and I'm going to be able to play rook e in the future to be able to get some targets on this queen if my opponent isn't playing accurately. He goes queen g4. Which is the best move, of course, putting some pressure over here, threatening bishop to h6 with some unstoppable attacks. And that's the reason why I blundered the way I did. I played the move king to h8. Why? Well, it's obvious, right? You want to play bishop to h6? Now you can't play bishop to h6. I'm stopping his threats. But one thing that I didn't see from a distance, and one thing that is glaringly obvious at this point, is that knight to g6 just wins the game. Knight g6 just wins the game because after I take it, my opponent's going to recapture with the bishop, hitting my queen. After my queen moves, you have check here, and a checkmate on that square. And that's not good. That's not what we want. And my opponent thinks for a while. My opponent thinks for like a minute and a half, I think. And he finds the right move. He finds knight to g6 check, but it's not the right move. This actually loses. This loses for white. It doesn't lose. It's not correct. It loses material for white, but white actually has enough to be able to keep it a slight advantage here. Knight to g6 is not correct because I can actually take the knight. I can take the knight here. And after bishop to g6, the move that I missed is rook to f7, simultaneously stopping queen to h5 check, because after king g8 here, after king g8 here, I get an extra square from my king, and I'm actually surviving, which is really cool, really, really cool stuff. I'm not in the business of finding stuff like that, but I thought that would be like really, really interesting. If I was able to find this move, I probably would have maybe won the game. I don't see like an easy way for my opponent to continue the attack here, and really, it's not easy at all. The only move that gives white an advantage is b4. What? Like, okay, knight e4. I'm defending everything. I don't even b5. Okay, come on. We don't talk about stuff like that, computer. If I had seen that, I would have done really well, but instead I played king to g8 because, of course, I was nervous about this whole line. I thought I was just getting mated. And after king to g8, my opponent can just take this and just be better. Just be better. Queen h5, game over. Nothing I can really do. h6, bishop takes h6. I don't really see a defense. If I'm being honest, I don't see a single defense for black. But instead of that, my opponent goes for a big risk, and instead plays the move queen to h5, and this loses again. This loses again because again I have rook f7. Again I can take the knight and I have rook f7. Completely missed that. Completely missed that. But that is a move that I can play, which would be really cool. It would have been really cool. But of course, after queen h5, I miss it again, and I think for a while I'm trying to figure out a move to survive here, and I play bishop to c8. And the point of my opponent's play, I realize, is that my opponent wants this check. I'm gonna take back with a queen. There's no defense here. My opponent gives me this check with a bishop. King back gives me this check here, and if I move my king back, it's mate. So I have to sack my bishop. Bishop takes h6, and that's the position that I saw. And that happens. Knight e7 check, queen takes e7, and my opponent wins the game here with queen takes a. No, that's not the move. No, that's not the move at all. No. You gotta take back. You gotta take with the bishop here. You gotta take with the bishop because, of course, in this position I have to sack my bishop, and I mean this looks pretty bad for me. This looks pretty bad for me, right? So it's not queen takes 7. No. But queen takes 7. Okay, my opponent's still winning. King to f7. My opponent realizes his mistake and checks my king back to g8, which is forced. And okay. Now he finds bishop h7. Okay, there we go. Now he finds bishop h7. I'm probably gonna lose this game. My hand is like hovering over the resign button. I don't know if I'm really gonna press or not, but the position is quickly getting out of hand. King to h8, and yeah, just bishop to g6, and I lose my bishop, and yeah, I'm probably just gonna lose the game. But instead, instead of bishop to h6, bishop to g6, and I lose everything. My opponent goes rook to f3, believing that, okay, well, you can't checkmate. I can't checkmate you with just my queen and my bishop. I need to bring a rook in as well. Okay. That's fine. I guess you're right. In this case. But the best move here really surprised him, and I found it immediately. The only move for black to have any sort of play here at all, like any sort of play, is bishop to g4. Hitting the rook, hitting the queen, and if you take, of course, I take back this bishop. I'm already up to 2 points of material, so so if you start trading pieces, the attack kind of goes away. That was a dog, by the way, if you couldn't tell. And now I'm gonna pause the recording because that is a problem. All right, I'm back. The dog has stopped barking, and we can continue. Bishop to g4. I need to reorient myself. Bishop to g4. After the queen takes, of course, I would get the bishop, right? And if that happens, I mean, isn't black just trading all the pieces? There's no mate. I mean, black is better, right? Well, my opponent has a very, very nice move here. Move queen to h4, which is very, very cool. And after I take the rook, my opponent goes bishop g6 here. Sorry, bishop g6 here. Bishop takes h6, and after bishop to h5, queen takes h5. This is the position that I have to go for, and this is, of course, lost. I mean, there's no hope here for me, but you never know. Maybe I could do something. I'm still up a point of material here. Instead, he goes queen takes g4 and loses the game. And I'm able to quickly just get a better position. I go king takes h7. And my opponent has no attack anymore. Rook to h3, king to g8, bishop to h6. It looks scary. I'll give you that, but there's nothing here. And in fact, I can just do whatever I want. You aren't even threatening my piece. If you go here in the future, I'm just gonna go rook to f7 if I can ever draw arrows. Sorry, rook to f7, defend my bishop. Good game. Well played. So I don't have to do anything. So I go knight to e4. I just bring my knight in the way. My idea is that I want to play knight to g5. I want to disconnect these two pieces and get even more trades off, because of course the more trades that I get, the better my position gets. And of course, if I'm able to trade off something like the queens, this is probably just a wrap. So knight e4. My opponent goes rook to f1, and I go with the move knight to g5. Of course, just going for more trades. My opponent takes on g5. I take back with the pawn, hitting the rook with my rook. He has to do something about it. If he doesn't do anything about it, of course, that would be a back rank mate. So he has to work on that. And my opponent goes rook g1. And now it's just easy. Rook to f4. My opponent goes queen to h5, and I get another trade off. Rook to h4, hitting the queen, hitting the rook. This pawn is a kind of a hero, moving a couple of times here, trading all of his pieces, which is very, very nice of him. I'm glad that he was trained well, and yeah, rook to h4, and there's really nothing my opponent can do. He has to take. I take back with the g pawn, and at this point, I just have to be clean. I have to be right, and I can't just blunder everything. My opponent goes h3. I go rook to f8, putting the rook on the open file is always a good idea, and my opponent goes b4, thinking that he has nothing else. He has to go for some counterplay. I think here for a little bit, but of course I already know what I'm going to play. My pawns are in the perfect pot. My queen is in the perfect spot to defend my pawns right now, so it's not really too difficult, and I simply start pushing my pawns. I go d4, opening up my queen's attack on this, opening up some attack on this. If he trades here, I can just take back here. The pawn is hanging, and the bishop is a very, very nice defender of this, and it'll allow me to just promote a second queen and win the game. C takes d4, e takes d4. My opponent goes rook to d1. I can probably take here because after queen d5, rook f7, queen d8, I have queen f8 defending everything. But I mean, like, why would I lose this pawn, right? I didn't want to lose this pawn, so I just decided against it. I guess here I have rook f1. I missed that move, but it doesn't really matter. Instead, I go queen to e4, defending the pawns like that, defending literally all of my opponent's queen squares, and I'm threatening this move rook to f5, which would force a queen trade out of my opponent, and that would just be lost. My opponent would just have nothing there, and I would be winning the game very, very easily. Queen to g5 is a good move. Going away from rook f5 being a threat and going to this square. I go d3 because I don't care. And now my pawn is only 2 squares away from promotion. a4, and I kind of steal myself. I'm able to get my bearings, and I play rook to f5, which is the best move because at the end of the day, after queen d8, king to h7, and the queen takes on d3, now I get a queen trade. And an M appears in the evaluation finally. And this is very, very simple. Check, king h2. Easy way to win here is bishop e5. Don't know why I didn't see that. I thought of another easy way to win, which is just rook to b1. My opponent cannot defend the pawns because the rook coming to this square would be losing a rook. And after here, I would simply go rook to a1. I'd be winning this pawn. And I think that being up an exchange is being up a bishop, sorry, is more than enough to win this position. Instead, my opponent just goes rook d4, hangs the rook, and resigns the game. And this was a very, very fun game. I did not deserve to win this game. I really, really did not deserve to win this game from, where was it? From this position? No. This position I deserve to win this game from? No. This was really, really, really stupid, but you know what? I win. Plus 6 points. Life is good. And more chess games I can win, the happier I am. So, that's all I've got for you today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys found this entertaining, instructive, all of the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, to learn what these YouTubers tell you to do. And yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.